Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. The chart you're looking at, provided by netdania.com, you can click on the link below, is the silver spot in the euro. I'm going to try to make this a European edition. You'll see for a number of reasons. First of all, I want to start with the silver chart in the euro, but I'm going to go to the euro itself because it's, as I predicted yesterday, it looked like it was hitting kind of a basement floor where things just tend to fall straight down. It did go down some more. But let's start with the silver price in euros. You can see a couple of interesting things here. One of the most interesting, I haven't even drawn it in yet, but let's look at this. This bottom here does not coincide with this other bottom that we had in the September smackdown. So on the US chart it's much closer, but on this euro chart you can see that it seems to be much more in line with this other trend line. Now the other thing to point out here is that the MACD trend line on the silver euro seems to be very close to doing something like this. And if that's the case, then we will probably see a rally somewhere into this area. And as the euro weakens and silver stays steady or a little bit weaker, then this chart is going to strengthen. So it's definitely in your interest if your wealth is denominated in euros. I think that we may be approaching a very serious point. I wanted to show you that by jumping over to the US dollar chart, and let's get in close so we can see what we looked at yesterday. If you remember yesterday, I pointed out this sort of flat line formation. We're seeing a number of these. You can go back to here and see one. And this is the type of behavior that a lot of stocks, if you were watching Enron, WorldCom, a lot of the companies that went bankrupt, Bear Stearns, their stock patterns behaved in this way. They basically had no floor, that it's just a lack of buyers. So you can see that we're going into the weekend with another one of these basement type floors. Now remember, this is the euro US dollar chart. So that's going to be different in other currencies. Now when we take the long view, we can see that it doesn't seem to be a real serious thing here, kind of maybe a trend channel, something like that forming. Not real serious. You can see that there's a lot of support in and around here and back in and around here. Now this obviously is extrapolated because the euro wasn't even in existence. So I believe this is extrapolated prices probably from a basket of the currencies that existed before the euro existed. But when we go to our cross rates, we want to take a look at some cross rates here. And if we go to NetDania's cross and we choose the euro, we can see the euro cross in a lot of these currencies. One that's kind of interesting is the euro versus the Chinese renminbi or yuan. You can see that's a significant breakdown below major low and then another major low right here. So the euro is significantly breaking down against the Chinese currency. Now it's not just the Chinese currency. I happened to pull up, and I haven't gone through all these, there's just too many to go through. I just happened to look at a few. One that I looked at was the New Zealand dollar. I thought it was NZD. I must have missed that. So let's see if we can find that. I'm not seeing it here right now. There it is. And this is a very ominous chart. You can see that obviously this is extrapolated back to 1977, but this price here is a true euro price. We draw the line from the low of that point, and then if we draw a line from the lowest low, which is just below that, right here, that's our next support level against the New Zealand dollar. So this is going to be new all-time lows. We're really pretty much in new all-time lows. You can see the loss of value that the euro has had from 2.55 down to 1.6. Not a 50% loss, but a big loss nonetheless. So let's grab a couple of other currencies. Let's do the Australian dollar. And I haven't looked at these yet. So that is extremely ominous. You can see that the euro has absolutely broken free of any, let's get in closer, of any type of support against the Australian dollar. So the euro is looking worse against a lot of these other currencies, even that it is looking against the US dollar. So that's really scary. You'll have to go through and look at all these yourself. Here's a euro versus a Canadian dollar. And not quite as ugly. Let's do one more. I'm curious to see what the euro versus the British pound is. And this is the euro versus the British pound. This is kind of a key chart because Britain has kind of halfway gone into the euro and halfway not. So this one seems pretty ominous. We have some support down here and some support down here. Let's go out to the weekly and get the long view on this. So in this case, because the pound is so weak relative to just about every other currency, it's been weak for a significant amount of time, but you can see that there's a significant break in the trend line even against the Great British Pound, which is a very weak currency. So the euro seems to be breaking down, and I really don't see any support coming in at this point in time. It just seems to be a collapsing currency. So maybe there'll be some meetings over the weekend. I don't know. I don't know what's going to be decided, but we seem to be approaching that point of a dire situation. Now I want to jump over to some silver, and this time I've chose Tulving. Tulving is for the larger players, so he has minimum, so if you can't buy, normally it's between $10,000 and $20,000. If you can't do that, then it's not going to be for you. But for the bigger players, there's some deals here, and I just wanted to point out a couple that I've noticed. Now, Tulving is always going to quote based on spot. The buy prices for you are going to be over here, spot plus whatever. So you go and look at the current, I think the current spot price is $28.50, something like that. One of the first ones that jumped out at me was, of course, here's the boxes of the Cougar. So if you did want to get those, if you wanted to get a box, you can go over to Tulving, and that's going to translate to about $31.50. So that's definitely going to be the best price you're going to find, at least the best price I've found for those wildlife series at $31.50 right now. That's an incredible buy for the weekend. Now, he also has some boxes of these America the Beautiful coins. Here's a Gettysburg National Park. Here's Glacier National Park. Here's Olympic National Park. And I honestly cannot tell you why these are so cheap. I don't know if they just expected a tremendous rush of people into them and it just didn't pan out. I don't know what the reason is, but these are 5-ounce coins. So if you take this and divide it by 5, you're really looking at about 35 cents above spot on a American-made numismatic. I've shown you the pictures before. They're very beautiful coins on the Park side. Then it's a Washington quarter on the other side. That may be part of the reason as well, but still, if you're looking at just buying silver for silver, I don't see how you can go wrong here. I mean, yes, you can find some things cheaper. You can find maybe some of the bags of stuff, but really I don't see how you can go wrong buying those coins. You're practically buying them at spot. You're buying them at 35 cents above spot. So those are some incredible deals on Tulving. I don't know why those prices are so low, but they are. So, you know, if you've got some spare cash, you might want to scoop some up. Again, that's going to be, his minimum is going to be 100, and that's going to be 5 times, say 30. It's going to be 150, and that's a 100 coin minimum. And so that's going to be, it's going to be 12,000 or so. So they're not cheap, but you can get the best prices here if you're willing to buy in bulk. Now I wanted to take you over to the blog roll. Main thing I wanted to point out for Europeans, I had someone suggest to me that after they saw the cluster map that's on my page, where I pointed out the participation, especially in Europe, and someone pointed out to me that you seem to have a decent following in Europe, so maybe you want to make sure that your blog is translated. Now, these videos are not translated. I'm working on that. If any of you know the apps or how that works with YouTube, I don't. I need to investigate that. But what I have added now is the Google Translate, and it was a widget that I was able to install. Worked pretty easy with WordPress.com. So what this does is, if you want to read this blog in a different language, all you have to do is just click the language that you want. Let's choose German, and it's going to load the blog from Google Translate, and it's going to translate the blog. Now, what's really great about this is because it embeds, let's look at this silver backwardation article. Because it embeds, you can actually click the link that goes to the article itself, and it's going to translate into the language. You can see that this whole thing is in German. So it's amazing what Google Translate has done. I just had no idea that they had achieved such a thing, but in researching it, I found out to be the case. Now you can also click on this link of silver picture that I have here. If you click on that, that will take you to my YouTube channel. That will also translate, sorry about that, that will also translate my YouTube channel into the language that you're looking at. So I'm still trying to get it to work on the next level where it will bounce straight into the video and translate all the comments. I haven't got that working yet, but hopefully I can get that working into the future. So I'm very excited about that. I really want to be able to reach out to people who don't speak English, and so I'm going to look for some kind of translation here on the YouTubes that my voice can be translated. I don't know how much that will take to do. So if any of you do, I'd appreciate help with that. So let's do the blog roll real quick. This is a kind of shocking video that I think it was Lou Rockwell found, where some guys in the press room are mentioning that 2/3 of them are going to be laid off if Ron Paul wins the presidency. This is Reggie Middleton, who was on CNBC. It's kind of a nervous interview, but he really goes after the FIRE economy, and I think they're a little bit shocked. Here's silver in backwardation, and that's really amazing, talking about March silver. So we may be looking at a rally just like we had in the past, where we rally straight up into May from this point on. We're not really sure. This is an article about the chain of custody behind the gold price, and I did link the YouTube. This is from Takoa da Silva, and he's really an up-and-comer. He's really doing a great job, so I encourage you to watch that. Here's a mainstream media article that I linked that is about MF Global and how the investigation is going deeper and it's leading to CME Group. Ed Steer's latest, the debt Ponzi. There's Joel Skousen on Ron Paul. I wanted to mention that I am not a Mormon. This is from a Mormon, a Mormons for Ron Paul. Apparently Joel Skousen is. I didn't know he was, but or whether he was, but I'm not a Mormon. but that's the videos there for you to watch. Greece may be heading for a euro exit, and this is your technocrat here that I talked about in my technocrats video. Ron Paul is apparently surging in New Hampshire. It would be very interesting to see Ron Paul place again in another one of these. Silver confirms the bullish outlook for precious metals, and there's some very interesting charting here. And the demand for silver bullion coins hits a record high on bargain prices. Now, you know that we had a record year again for the Silver Eagle. We are currently selling more Silver Eagles than ounces of silver are mined in the United States. So I believe initially the law for the Silver Eagle was that it had to source silver mined within the United States. So that would be an interesting story if anyone can find out where that extra silver is coming from, because they're now selling more Eagles. That's just Eagles. That's not the other numismatic coins. That's just the Silver Eagle. It's outstripping all of the silver mined in the United States. And that brings up an interesting point that I made before about the South American countries that provide, Central and South American, that provide nearly half the entire silver supply of the world. Are they going to want to continue to be stripped of their valuable resource? The latest Simon Black, some advice about what currency to hold. And this is an article I threw up about doctors and the state of medical care and the socialist, just the utter destructions that is brought up by socialism. Of course, we already have semi-socialism. That's why our medical profession is in such a state right now. And of course, it's the influence of the insurance companies and the way people use medical care and insurance, and it just, the prices go through the roof. Not a free market system. And this is a look out below article. I can't agree with that more, because it does appear that the decline of the euro has begun. The latest dollar vigilante. Here's a King World News interview with Dr. Stephen Lieb. He goes over some gold and silver stuff. And this is an article about how you need to buy gold if it's below its 200-day moving average, and that's right now. Here's an end times forecast. King World News and Paul Brodsky, and about systemic failure. Here's a very interesting read. This is actually an older one, but I posted it. It's an interview with Charles Savoy. Charles Savoy is the absolute historical silver guru. He knows more about the history of silver going back hundreds of years than probably anybody else. The Miles Franklin Quarterly Report, backdoor fractional reserve banking and insolvency. Very interesting. King World News, another interview with James Turk. And here's an article about Fed intervention and its effect upon stock market prices. And you can see the most startling thing. If I click this, it's going to go to the article, but we'll go ahead and click that. But the most startling thing, I think, when you look at this chart, is the fact that interest rates went to zero right there. They just flatlined. They went to zero, and they've just stayed dead. So it's pretty amazing to hear every day people talking about, well, to spur on the recovery, or we're trying to get into a recovery. It's just a mixed mess of what people think. Are we still in a recession or not? Supposedly the recession ended, wasn't it June of 2009? Why have interest rates been at zero and projected to be zero for 3 years straight? So obviously something is seriously broken in the economy, seriously broken. And the next article is wild gyrations in commodities and gold. Of course, commodities are going to be the key. All the commodities, gold and silver, are going to be priced in dollars, so that's very important. So that's the blog roll, and try to keep a lot of relevant articles. There's just so much coming out right now, fast and furious. But if you have friends who can't speak English and you can explain to them that they can go to the blog and they can click these links to get it in their language, that's something that they may want to do. So the big story is going to be the euro. I'm a little bit worried that next week might be an absolutely frightening week for the euro, because it seems to have broken below support, and on the close-up it seems to be in a free fall. So it may not be very much longer before something very drastic happens in Europe. And we'll talk to you next time.